Okay, well, I'm going to call this meeting to order, and we'll hope that Omega gets here a little bit later. And thank you for our folks that have joined us. And somewhere there's a chat if you want to type instead of talk. Oh, Tenacious C just popped in. Okay. But right now we're all in vocal together, and we'll try to make a little bit of time for folks to ask questions. But do you have the chat? Figure out how that works there, Pixl?
Yeah, there's like a little in the top right hand corner of where the faces are. There's like a little text bubble speech thing. Click that, and it'll pop out the chat for people.
There we go. Okay, but that's like all of the bonus mom chat from before. Okay.
Yeah, it's persistent. So.
Okay, so welcome to everybody. What we are here that MomChat, that Bonus Mom wants to talk about tonight is last Friday night and Curse of Strahd. It was quite the intense situation. So, Pixl, what I'm hoping is that you will tell us briefly, without going through everything, how we ended it on the Friday night before last Friday night.
Sure. So yeah, they were in the death house. They had traveled into the basement of it after meeting the two ghosts of the kids that led them in there in the first place. Through some good rolls and some good role playing, they discovered that they needed to lay the souls of the children to rest. And then they did that in the catacombs beneath, and then went back to this big chamber that was kind of behind this grate and had all this water in it and stuff. And in the center of that chamber, they discovered is like a dais raised up out of this water with an altar on it. And when everybody went up onto the altar, these dark-robed figures showed up around the edges of the room and began chanting that one must die.
Okay, hold it right there. That's good. That's actually, I'm sorry, that's before the end of the last episode, but that's the point I wanted to get at.
Okay.
So, the two siblings had stepped up onto the altar. So, what were you all thinking when this one must die thing popped in? Do you remember?
Yeah, so just kind of coming at this from the whole, this would be specifically when the monster actually showed up, the shambling mound. Yes. I know that Pixl had made it pretty clear outside of the game that we weren't meant to fight this or whatever. But I do know that Ash specifically, with Thorn standing up there next to them, was absolutely not going to get off that altar until they knew that Thorn was going to be able to make it off as well, which may or may not be what got us into half of the situation we were in the first place.
Okay, so Thorn, there you were on the altar, and the shambling mound, has just made his appearance. Wanderous cast Thorn Growth or something. What was it I cast? Yeah, something like that. Entangle. Was it Entangle?
Yeah, it was Entangle.
So. Yeah. What were you thinking?
Well, I mean, I kind of thought that, we're definitely not going to be able to fight this. I think I hit it with a guiding bolt. And, Pixl said it really, didn't do a whole lot of damage to it. And, I mean, everyone else kind of got off the altar except for Ash and I. And, it was basically like, okay, so kind of in the same boat as Ash. Like, I wanted to make sure Ash could get out of there. I wasn't just going to leave Ash there. So
okay, so we got the two siblings standing there, determined not to leave each other. Okay, thank you, Pixl, for pausing. Now, can you pick it up again? Because you have the best memory of over you and me to tell what happened next. So there are two brothers on the altar.
Right. So the thing has just enough movement to get into melee with you guys. So I think the next turn you sort of started to flee. But I'm pretty sure the creature was close enough to be able to just get into melee. And I think it was that first turn, it attacked Ash, knocked you unconscious, and engulfed you all in like one round.
Oh, yeah.
So Ash went from like perfectly fine, basically, to like unconscious and being eaten by a plant monster, just immediately.
And he hesitated in the doorway. I remember that part. Like he was kind of like right in the doorway. Still
okay, so maybe
in the water.
next round that happened.
No,
And so this thing was, because it was chasing you guys. It got out of the entangle, and it was like someone was trying to take up the rear, and it ended up Ash got knocked unconscious and then entangled, and therefore couldn't make your escape DC, but somebody healed you, and then you were able to make the escape DC, but by that point, Thorin got knocked unconscious twice, Onyx got knocked unconscious, and then Ash was able to escape and start running, and Wandress grabbed both Thorin and Onyx.
Yeah.
And started running. And that's kind of where we ended that episode. You guys reached the stairwell, and this thing was like right on Ash's heels. And it was pretty obvious that with both the unconscious bodies, that Wandress was not going to be able to outrun this thing far enough.
Yeah.
So
you kind of gave me one shot of adrenaline and let me actually get across the room and on the other side of Ash. And that's where we ended it. So then we had this 2-week break that we're all frantically trying to read our characters. And what did we come up with, guys? Because we came up with a couple of things talking outside a game.
Yeah, so I know that with Ash being a rogue, I had the ability to bonus action disengage and be able to, or dash rather, and be able to move a lot further. So I think the plan we finally settled on was I was going to come in, grab Thorin, and with the dash action, I should have been able to keep ahead of the mound. And then with you, with your full, or Wondrous rather, with their full movement, we should be able to keep ahead of the thing.
Right. But the kicker was that you had to provoke the attack of opportunity to get far enough away in the first place, right? Because if you didn't, you weren't going to be able to move quite far enough to stick out of its range. So it all kind of hinged on whether or not the thing would miss you with its first attack.
Right.
Because if you used your bonus action to disengage instead of dash, it would have taken the action to grab Thorin, and you wouldn't have been able to go far enough, so it would have reached you the next round and just knocked you unconscious again. So, and that's kind of where we left it. That was like, I think, basically the plan going into the session.
As far as we were concerned.
Yeah, was it the plan though?
That's not.
Hold on a minute, because we just got Omega. Hey, guy, welcome. We're catching up with where the episode ended before last Friday night. And at that point, at that point, you're unconscious. Thorin is unconscious, and Wandrous has both of you. And Thorin had failed 2 death saves, right?
Right, and I was on my last one.
Did you have any saves? Do you remember?
I think it was 2 and 2, honestly. If I remember correctly.
So I was 2 and 2.
Okay. What about
I had 2
Onyx?
saves and 2 failures.
I had 1 failure, and then when we came back, I rolled another fail on the next episode.
Okay, so his first roll. Okay, all righty. So 2 fails and 1 fail, and there we are. And okay, so then we plotted. I was talking about that part a little bit, Omega. In the 2 weeks between, we plotted a little bit with or without Pixl about how can we make this work. And the only thing we could come up with, because if Wandrous was just carrying you, Wandrous got his full 30 feet of movement.
Yeah. Yep.
But Wandrous only had 15 feet of movement if he was carrying unconscious Thorin. Dead or alive, either way, didn't matter. So then we came up with the idea of like trying to throw the dwarf at Ash as he's running past, and everything depended really heavily on dice rolls.
Yep.
But our DM, as we are plotting how can we transfer this unconscious dwarf while running away from a shambling mound, our DM was plotting. So tell us about that, DM. Sure.
So a couple of things were going through my brain. One of which was basically this. This is a streamed campaign. And they were cruising for the possibility of like minimum of 1, possibly 3, and maybe even everybody literally dying, right? And so I started thinking about like, okay, well, what am I going to do with that, right? Just like preparing my brain as the DM for like, what do we do if this is what happens? And I started tossing around a bunch of different ideas, and none of them were like super satisfactory, honestly. And in like a home game, I wouldn't necessarily like think of it this way, right? But like, given that it's like streamed and we're trying to do this to some extent for entertainment, I'm like, like what can we do here? What can work? But I knew at the same time, like if I just like cozy it up and make it all good for everybody, like that is going to really break immersion. It's going to kind of not like, that's not going to be satisfying for anybody, right? It's going to be obvious that there is no real threat, right? And of course that can't be the case. So basically the way that I started to approach it was like, okay, I mean, essentially no matter what happens here, I didn't like, I knew like, okay, I could literally just leave this to the dice, right? And a lot of DMs would do that. And there are times that I do that. But in this case, I was like, I think we can make something kind of dramatic and interesting happen. But whatever I do, I think it needs to involve player choice. I think they need to be choosing something. It's not just something that I'm having happen kind of by fiat. The DM says, now you all die and you die. Like that's never really satisfying for the most part. But it also has to have a cost. It's like you're kind of choosing between benefits and costs, as opposed to like, here's one unambiguously good thing and one unambiguously bad thing. What are you going to choose? Like, well, of course you're going to choose the good thing, right? So it has to be like, here's the thing that like, I wanted to kind of see if I could make a scenario where you could understand why someone would choose both options. You know what I mean? And they both were benefits and they both were costs. And then it also kind of hit me actually literally in the shower one day. I was like washing my hair and I was like, wait a minute.
Hashtag shower thoughts.
Hashtag shower thoughts. I was like, I could do something with the nat 20 that got rolled on that religion check. I was like, I could concoct, like Thorin's unconscious, right? I could concoct kind of a scenario here and sort of offer this choice. So I messaged Nick outside of the group chat and was like, hey, basically, do you want to pull some shenanigans with me?
I was like, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think what I literally says was like, okay, Curse of Strahd question. How attached are you to Thorin and do you want to pull some shenanigans?
And I was like definitely attached to Thorin. I love the whole thing that, Thorin and Ash had going, siblings, and like the whole paranormal investigative thing. And I thought that was really cool and I didn't want to give that up. But, so I was like, well, I'll hear what he has to say. And, once you explained everything, man, I was just like, how can I not do this? This is...
Yeah. So, and I kind of gave you the option of like, how much do you want to know? Right. Cause I'm like, I could see certain players being like, yes, I want to kind of collaborate with you, but I want some aspects of it to be like a surprise in the moment, or certain players being like, no, just tell me everything, and it'll just be kind of like a thing that you and I are doing that kind of pulls it over on everybody else, which ended up being pretty much how we played it. And so I basically explained like, hey, we have this nat 20. I kind of envision this scenario where you're unconscious and you have inadvertently, to some extent, like summoned an angel to Barovia, which is a thing that like is really not supposed to be able to happen there, to essentially like extract the souls of these two kids. But the you guys don't quite know this yet. You'll learn more about it later, but like the shit that's in Barovia is no joke, right? And so I kind of wanted to just like take that moment and like pull something more out of it, right? And basically say like, okay, Thorin, like you're going to have a choice, right? The angel can basically bring you back to consciousness and you can try and help your friends escape. You have, I think, maybe Spare the Dying. You could stabilize Onyx. I don't know if you had any spell slots left. But like, having the cleric present would certainly help them get out more than having to drag your body, right? But the cost of that is, right, one of the souls of the kids like gets stuck there, right? Or the alternative is you personally can distract the thing that is trying not to let the souls of the children go, which is strong enough to go toe to toe with this angel. However, the trade-off will be that it takes Thorin instead, right? So
did you explain all of that to Thorin? He knew it all.
I think so. Yeah, you tell me, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, you more or less, told me that I could either save the souls of the kids or distract the monster, but I would die. So, I mean, you presented me with that choice. And I mean, part of me, was like, well, at the end of the day, I would rather just keep playing. And then, I thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, well, I'm playing a cleric and who follows, the god of protection. So it doesn't really make for good RP for me to choose to save myself over that.
Yeah.
Well, you
So
played
I was
it
kind of
very
looking at it from
well.
an RP perspective, and that's really what led me to do that.
Yeah, and honestly, I was excited for it either way, right? Because on the one hand, like, it was a really dramatic moment the way it played out, and then the kid gets to save your friends, which I think I might have told you about, but I don't really remember.
Yep. You didn't tell me about that part.
So that was a surprise. You really thought you were like abandoning your friends versus saving the kid. But so that's the one hand, is that like we have to bring in a new character, and also we have this sort of impact on all the rest of the party members from what happened with Thorin, versus if Thorin chose the other option, now there's a whole lot of impact on Thorin for having sort of like, having the shortcoming of having chosen himself or whatever. Like, so I, as a DM, I was like, I'm excited for either way this plays out. This is going to be great.
Yeah,
so
but that really left him with a really difficult choice. And of course, the people, Trish and Onyx and and Omega, we're all sitting there listening to this, so we have full knowledge of it. But as players, we don't know any of that is going on because it's all happening so fast or whatever. I can't imagine how we would have reacted had he made a different choice if he had told us about it. Like, I would think, as rough as it was on Ash, how would you have felt if you found out that your sibling chose you out of the little boy? That would have been just as horrible, wouldn't it?
That'd been something to deal with for sure. And like, it definitely split emotionally, because like, overjoyed that, they get to keep their sibling, especially with hinted backstory, especially from the kind of past they've had together. But at the same time, I don't know. I think that Ash fully accepts that there was no other decision that Thorin himself would have made,
Yeah.
Like, that's not the hard part to come to terms with. It's more just like the loss, right? But no,
And
totally. If he would have came back, been like, "What do you mean? You didn't save the kids?"
yeah, that would have been tough. I think we all would have had to deal with that. Onyx, how was it for you, Omega, just to kind of like be unconscious through the whole thing? You're just having to listen and you don't get a voice.
Yeah, I was weird, like, being unconscious during that, because I was like, like, there were so many things I could say, but I can't say them. And I was like, okay, well, this is how it is now, I guess. So
Yeah.
and that was where I was like trying to figure out, like, I guess how I would RP it out, like, once I got conscious, like, which it was kind of tough, I think, just in general, because like I didn't really have like a good chance to I guess like understand what happened, and I just see Ash or Thorin just sitting like, or I guess dead, sit there. It was just like, oof.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot we have to talk about because very few words were spoken. I know that after he made that choice and Ash found out, then Ash just like went dead silent for a long time. That he just was like in shock. And you handled that really well, Vincent, as you were sitting there trying not to die. Well, a thing that happened with me, this is like the mother. Okay, this is Trish, the mother. I knew that that Ozzy had one death roll coming. And when Pixl totally ignored the death roll, I mean, I wanted to get up out of my chair and step across the hall and say, "You forgot to give me these death roll. What do you think you're doing?" And I was just dying about that.
BonusMom getting heated.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. But Nick handled it. Ozzy handled it so well. You were in character and you're playing it and you're listening, and so that calmed me down actually fairly quickly, although I razzed about I was going to put Pixl in timeout. But I really did. I thought that Pixl on the biggest night of our lives in this game had just totally, forgotten something. So that was really tough for me.
That's funny.
And then when I think about how much time outside a game we all spent figuring out what our movement was going to be to get out of there, to get away from that mound, and then Pixl came in with the kid,
Came in like a wrecking ball.
Oh man, that kid! Oh, I knew that was going to tear you guys up.
Yeah.
And also,
you have to go. I felt like a little anime protagonist right there.
100%.
I was like,
100%.
I loved it.
oh my god. Well, and
Yeah.
what I enjoyed about that whole like concoction was like, as a DM, sort of taking like, I literally could have just said, okay, look, man, the mechanics are what they are. How far you can move is how far you can move. The death rolls or whatever they, and you as the players are just going to have to figure out whatever spells and abilities and crap you have to try to get away from this thing. And it still would have been very tense and very dramatic. But I also feel like we crafted like a really cool, fun moment where we got to like reveal a little bit of like Barovia. We got to involve those kids a little more that you guys had kind of become kind of attached to. Players got to make tough, interesting choices about what their character would do when presented with options that both have conflicting benefits and costs, to them and their friends and things. And then I got to do these really dramatic, like, thing, if we'd gone the other way, we wouldn't have had the whole angel chanting in Celestial and the weird creepy shadows, rhyming couplets and all of that.
Crap, I didn't even realize that was Celestial, so I should have understood what that said.
Yeah, you did, and that's what I said afterwards. Like, I kind of got quieter because I didn't want to yell again, because it was already pretty loud. But yeah, so if you watch back at it, like the whole Celestial thing, I then, when I say, you what those words means, that was for the translation. And so I just thought that was really fun, and I think it's cool to be able to do stuff like that as a DM, where you say like, okay, like, again, none of that is in the adventure. The adventure doesn't say if your party's about to get killed by this monster, throw this, angel, none of that, right? That was purely just sort of taking what had happened in the adventure and what they had given me and coming up with like this sort of thing that's not really in the mechanics at all, right? But that was a fun, cool kind of storytelling moment that I think is going to have a lot of really cool impacts on the rest of the campaign too.
Yeah, and I hope we're going to get a chance to talk about, like Onyx said, that all of us characters in the adventure know very little about what happened, and Ash knows a little bit. One other thing I want to throw in there from my perspective, Pixl said he was very aware that like we were playing D&D, but we're actually playing it in front of an audience, which makes it an entertainment, which changes things a little bit. Okay, so I've had this amazing success as BonusMom, and people love me and say I'm wholesome. And one of the things that I literally could have done was thrown both of the unconscious people and fled. And that actually, in character, would not be far off what Wanderous might have chosen, because Wanderous, in the way he was raised, has literally no concept of family loyalty, love, relationships, trust. The little bit of trust he's learned about was from Onyx letting him carry him over that bridge. So it really would have kind of made sense for Wanderers to have said, hey guys, I'm out of here. But I thought, if I do that, God, they'll ban me from TikTok. It'll be the end of my life. I'll never be able to be wholesome again. Plus, Trish did not want to do that in addition to everything. But that was something I wrestled with. Is like, what would Wanderous do? Well, you know what? He'd probably drop the dead weight. Sorry, Ozzy. So, okay.
I think I even said to do that if it came down to it, though.
Yeah.
As like a plan C, just yeet me.
Oh, yeah. You did in our in between the episodes discussions. Okay, so... And that kid, I don't know anybody if any of you all watched Game of Thrones, but needless to say, I thought of the whole Hodor thing.
Oh, no.
I did, with that little
emotional
kid
damage.
The shield. Yeah. Oh, God, I'm doing it again. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Take another Valium, one more with a little sip of Coke. You'll be okay. But anyway, okay.
It was kind of fun to see that. Sorry to interrupt, but it was kind of fun to see that. I think you're totally correct. What little bit we knew about Wanderous from the first few episodes is that kind of a loner, not really understanding the whole friend thing. But, there was little tidbits kind of leading up to the last week's episode where Wondrous was asking questions like, why do you seem so agitated like when Thorin was knocked out the first time? And I know that Wondrous and Ash kind of had this conversation a little bit about we care about one another. And then I want to say that Wondrous also had a conversation with Onyx that was along the similar lines. So it was kind of fun to kind of see that character development pop up so early in the game, you know?
Yeah, I never knew we'd get there. And plus, poor Onyx, who had to be unconscious for the whole time, really gave Wondrous like this chance to play protecting someone. That was a totally new experience for him. And that was like that was a big treat for me, while the poor Onyx just had to be unconscious.
Well, and that was another one, again, that like as a DM, the way that we mechanically handled that, I felt like very comfortable as sort of like an explanation of how I tend to approach stuff like that sometimes, right? Because you'll often have characters like try to come up with certain ways around some mechanics, you know? I don't know if you got how many of you are familiar with this campaign one, a Critical Role, but there's a thing where they're fighting, I think it's Umber Hulks or something, and they have like the confusing gaze or whatever, and you have to avert your eyes for the whole round, or you have to take disadvantage on the shot, right? And you can see the players trying to like, well, what if I just like sort of I don't look at its face, but I look and you know, and Matt sticks to his guns and says like, no, you either look or you don't, right? And this was kind of like that in terms of like when Wondrous is saying, okay, I want to find a way to like bundle this, you know, creature up and jump through these blades, of reaching a way of being like, you know, one way to adjudicate that is not necessarily just to unambiguously give the player what they want, but to come out with like, okay, you can do that, but there's a cost, right? So it's like now you have to weigh the cost benefit analysis of saying, and it kind of did the same thing with Thorin and Ash, which was, you know, you can take the dexterity save on your own with disadvantage, and you might take damage and the body might take damage, or you can separate those things, but you'll have a better shot of saving yourself, right? And it was the same thing with Wondrous. Of you could have done the same thing, right? Athletics and dex checks. But when you said I want to jump through and I want to fully protect the body, I was like, okay, well, the only way that I'm going to let that happen, because it completely negates any risk to the unconscious character, is to impose some sort of penalty against, you know, Wondrous, right? To make extra damage or to give, you know, disadvantage and that kind of stuff. And so that's one thing as a DM that I think like you aren't always just like stuck to, okay, this is exactly what the rules say. I think you can take the kind of intent of the rules and say like, I want to let the player do the thing they want to do, but I want to find a way to make it fair and dramatic and, you know, all of those things. And I think that was a good example of that, of saying like, okay, you want to do this thing that protects somebody. So in order to adjudicate that, like mechanically, it's going to have extra risk to you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
for sure. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that I know that we all give Pixl quite a bit of flack over being like, oh, you're a giant asshole, you're killing it. Honestly, don't feel that way at all, because something that I think that he does extremely well is stick to his guns, like you said, and realize that our choices do have actual consequences in the game. This is a fictional game, not real consequences, but you know what I mean, right? Like, we could just, you know, he'll take pity on us and we're going to get out of this no problem. Nah, he will kill us, and that it makes the game more fun in the end. You know, obviously we're going to have this whole sad arc with Thorin dying, but if I think we've learned anything from Hoard of the Dragon Queen, is character death can completely revitalize the entire campaign and take it a different direction. So
yeah. I want to throw in there also, just so you know, if you had any questions at all, Pixl kept this away from me 100%, and I pushed every way I knew to find out what he was going to do. Because he kind of let it slip that he had an idea, because he kind of said, "Oh," like at some point, what, you know, and then I want to know, and he didn't share.
Oh no,
I did not.
Okay, so we're now at the top of the house, guys. And we're facing.
Yeah, well, okay, we can't get to the top of the house without remembering the amazing Nat 1.
Oh God!
Oh God!
Oh my God! Can we not revisit that moment for just a second?
Sure.
Omega, just like God.
Let's talk about it. Let's unpack that for sure.
As soon as I saw that roll, I knew that I like there was nothing else I could do. And you can watch me. I don't even really want to do it because it's so kind of like messed up. But I'm like, no, there's no other thing that can happen here. This has to be what it has to be, you know?
I had a moment of internal struggle when I seen it too. I was like, because I had chat and DM inspiration. I want to point that out. I could have re-rolled that, but we were at the top of this house. We were at the top of this house, and I was terrified that the rest of us weren't going to make it. And obviously, this kind of plays into the whole Ash kind of already knew that Thorn was gone, right? Like, I think at this point, maybe it wasn't a for sure thing for maybe Wondrous and Onyx. I'm not sure. Well, obviously, Onyx was past that, but you know what I mean?
I don't think we yet exactly know.
Right. But like, we had already had that moment where Thorin had used the angel's power to reach out to Ash and be like, this is something I got to do. And you know, Ash already knew he's gone. I could have totally re-rolled that one and prevented that from happening, but I didn't know if the rest of us was going to make it out. And Ash had made a promise that we was going to get out. And
yeah, I mean, 100%. I wouldn't have done that either.
So I made a choice to let the bad thing happen.
Anybody who has chat, Pixl has shared that moment when the nat 1 was rolled.
Oh man. It's so sad, but Nick, your face.
So here's the thing, like after
thing.
I died, I was like making that GIF that I posted in Vince's Discord.
Right.
So like I wasn't really paying attention a whole lot, and then I just heard, and Thorin got decapitated, and I just started dying.
Oh man, and I'm actually imagining that moment too. Like, I thought about it later, and this is a little bit gruesome, but like when Thorin died, like, yeah, he'd been knocked unconscious, but like it was bludgeoning damage. It wasn't like, you know,
yeah, it wasn't like
slashing, piercing. So he wasn't really bleeding like a ton, right? So I just think about like that happening, Ash picking up and just getting blood all over him, and then half an hour later, 2 hours later, BonusMom shows up and gives him a hug, and BonusMom's like white apron just. I was like, oh, I didn't think about that until after the fact, and I was like,
if there's one time that I'm glad that you just didn't pay attention to detail, I'm so glad. The situation already was awful.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, like, you just got squirted with blood? Oh, that's fun.
Tons of it.
Oh, well, he told you how. I mean, he gave you tried to describe you picking your poor brother's.
Oh my God, that was offensive.
No, and I will say this: look, when I get into those moments of like really high adrenaline and stuff's moving quickly, and like I'm adjudicating a lot of different roles, like emotional Pixl kind of shuts off a little bit, and it becomes this like, you know, I don't know. Much more robotic stuff. So and I was fully just in the mechanics of like, yeah, okay, how could you do that? You know, and didn't even realize what exactly it was that I was suggesting until you're over here like, so first of all, we're not even going to entertain that bullshit.
Yeah, I will use my action to place the head in the bag. Thank you. And we'll die happy knowing that I didn't my brother said by the head of the hair. Yeah, hair of the head, rather.
That episode.
So okay, so there we are. We're more or less together. Some of us less together than others, and we have all those miserable doors. And to me, that whole sequence of going through the rest of the house with all of those rolls must be like what a soldier goes through when he's charging the cannons. You know, I mean, except in a very unreal way. But anyway, it's just like, okay, that's one, but how many more are there? And you just have to keep going and keep going and keep going. And those rolls just got to be a nightmare for me. That was almost worse than anything. Was I going to get this little guy out of there? Were we all? Because we could have died in those doors. You could have had that whole dramatic thing, and it still have been a TPK.
Could have been.
Yeah, could have been.
Those wolves.
I can only put my thumb on the scale so much, you know.
Yeah.
Before it starts to become again, because it's like if you know, oh, okay, like if this is not a dramatically satisfying thing to have happen. Pixel's gonna tweak some shit and make it not happen. Then you start to like lose the, you know, the adrenaline and the intensity of a campaign moment like that, you know. So it's like the consequences have to be like real and not just this sort of like fake thing. Otherwise, like you guys will do whatever you want all the time, and you know, and not have like any realistic fear of what's happening, you know.
And particularly with the theme. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm done.
Particularly with the theme, we kind of went in like obviously a lot of D&D campaigns can kind of turn into Monty Python movies, and we kind of had the discussion beforehand that we wanted to be serious. So when you take again with real consequences happening in game, it kind of makes them for the best RP moments. You're super serious, and I think it's entertaining to watch back, even though I don't get to watch it live.
Yeah, same thing here. I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
and you're right. We did decide on taking because I presented the option like, okay, I could see us doing a version of Curse of Strahd, and one day I might still want to run this game where instead of taking itself seriously and being really kind of gothic horror and all of that, just done in D&D, we kind of do this almost parody of it where like it's almost set in like a modern version of Barovia where Strahd is like a college frat like fuckboy, because that's basically what he is. And you just like really kind of deconstruct a lot of this and lampoon it, which would be a lot of fun. But we actually decided as a group to go with the serious sort of medieval gothic, horror elements. And it honestly probably is a better campaign than the one I would have run if we were doing this sort of parody version of it, but
yeah, it's intense.
The reality of the consequences definitely fits with that version of this campaign as opposed to the like sort of slapstick Monty Python, like Monty Python meets Animal House meets fucking Barovia or whatever, right?
Well, and the thing I want to get back to Onyx again too, in that you're completely unconscious. It's that same thing about he had literally no control over anything that happened to him. He just had to, there was nothing he could do. I mean, he's somebody who has a lot of stuff. And I think he probably, did you still have spell slots and things that you could have used, or were you empty of all that too, Omega? Can you answer maybe, he might have just frozen again.
Yeah, I think his internet's been rough today.
Yeah,
I think he's on his phone now.
Yeah, he tried to come back in. I don't know what I'm going to just say, I don't know what he had left, but he might have had like the most amazing thing that could have saved everything, but he was
100%.
Yeah, did you have anything left, Onyx, or were you out of spell slots and things also?
I think I had a couple of spell slots left. So I could have at least like fought back some. I think I only had maybe like two, maybe one or two level 1 spell slots left, and I think that was it.
And then you had cantrips, right?
Yeah, and then it has some cantrips on me as well. So I could have fought back if I wasn't unconscious.
Yeah, which you had to, like, when you got unconscious by trying to step in there and help the siblings at some point. I know that's how that happened. You actually got in the range of the bush also. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I was just saying while you were gone that there was nothing you could do and nothing you could say. Even if you would have had the best thing, you just are like unconscious riding down the stairs hoping for the best. I think we lost him again. Bless his heart. I'm sorry that's happening.
Nope. No, it's all good.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
But yeah.
So anything else, guys, before we made it out of the house? If not, we made it out of the house.
Oh, wait, what was the moment? I do like, as much as I was laughing about the decapitation moment, but that moment of like Wanderous being like, get the body or don't leave the body, and Ash being like, never. I was like, oh, that's so good.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Oh, man, that was so good.
I'm sad that I already had DM inspiration there because, it feels good to earn that. You know what I mean?
Well, and that was a major, now that you mentioned, that was major for Wanderous, because Wanderous, one of his things is like, he just totally does not like the undead or anything like that. He thinks like if you see a zombie, you kill it or whatever, and that he changed in the course of that house to, we have to bury this body rather than stab a silver stake through its heart. That was big for Wanderous. So, yeah, that was a good moment. I remember that one well. Okay, so we're outside. Poor little Onyx gets sat down and woke up. And you had to try to put like all your reaction into not knowing anything that happened, right?
Yeah. I think that was just the hardest part as a player and as role-playing as my character. Like, because knowing as a player what has occurred and what has happened and trying to dissociate from that and like try to react as like, I guess as real as possible, like for this type of situation. I tried my best at the very least, because I was like, I don't even know anymore. Like, that's how I tried to role play, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I wake up and it like seemed everything was fine until I saw Thorn. So yeah.
So
I guess one of the
that,
hardest things for new players, right, is understanding there is a level of disassociation you have to approach the game in, right? Like, if your player, or I'm sorry, if your character wasn't in this room here and he's dropping on this band of bandits that are about to rob this place, they don't know that's happening. If you're in the next room over, you are completely oblivious to that, and it's really hard to separate that, I think. Not saying that you're a new player, but I know that we've received some comments on the live stream like, why didn't you do this? It's like, you can't metagame, bro. You gotta get in there and be your character. And not everybody loves the role play part, right? But I know for this group specifically, that's like the bread and butter. And we would rather make a terrible strategic decision and act like our character than, just be like, no, this is, strategically the best thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. So
yeah. Well, I think that there'll be a point probably when you have a lot of questions to ask. Onyx is going to want to know what the heck happened here. Yeah.
I think definitely at some point I'm going to have to like sit down and so I'm also flavoring it to where I don't know anything about sword fighting as of right now at being a Bladesong wizard. So it's going to be like a really awkward interaction, I think, like trying to ask questions of Ash of like what happened while also like asking him for help and like learning how to fight with the sword so that way I can help out more, like.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that sounds really intriguing.
The question you should definitely ask is how exactly is it that the giant plant monster decapitated Thorin so cleanly?
Yeah, he didn't come.
I had to.
I had to
take it back. I do hate you.
Oh no, Pixl, I love you.
Yeah, that's right. I'm thinking all the things Onyx doesn't know about. My gosh.
Just like all the assumptions I could make.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, could you imagine, like, you rush back to help your friends, like, get away from this monster, and then you are knocked unconscious, and the next thing you remember is waking up to delicious smelling pie next to your friend's corpse while BonusMom is there? Like, what do you even do with that? For real. God. And I think this is an absolute mindfuck.
I think that was also the worst part about like the role playing of that, because it was just such a mindfuck having one.
I mean, at the same time though, like
two BonusMom and Thorn. I was like, what?
That's a lot of info to take in at one time.
Yeah, but like also, you got to think that like you and Wondrous really didn't know like Thorn and Ash because we had been traveling together for like, realistically 2 days, if that.
Yeah, we're practically strangers.
Well, it would have been, it basically was like 26 hours or so, right? As the way it played out. Because like you guys met in the middle of the night, woke up the next morning, were in the wrong universe, went into town, got tricked by the kids to going into the house, got knocked out a couple of times, had the fight, and by the time you came back out of the house, it was night again. So this is the night of like the second day. Like if this is Majora's Mask, we just had like boom, night, second day, just flash across the screen.
Yeah.
God, how much emotional and trauma can one group get into in 26 hours? Well, last episode
we figured it out.
Yeah, was your answer. All of it.
Well, and I'll tell you personally, now that we've mentioned BonusMom, that was the hardest. That's when I lost it. When my son in real life starts using all the phrases, that I use, hey kiddos or whatever, I just couldn't handle it. That totally tore me up. And then I had no help from Ash. Like he's being stoic and quiet, and in shock. Thorn, less said about Thorn, better. Poor Onyx is sobbing quietly, and it just didn't let up. That whole bonus mom thing was just as emotional for me as the rest of it. And I'm thinking this little old lady in the middle of the night walks up, and yes, we mentioned the blood and the gore and the whatever, and she's like, "How you doing? You look like you need a pie." It's like, no,
You
we
guys
need
have
a
had a rough
hearse
day, huh?
and a hospital, and yeah.
Oh, bonus mom.
And
Yeah.
I had to get in on the fun. I saw so many other people on TikTok using bonus mom as an NPC. I was like, we have to get in
I
on
love
this.
it.
We absolutely have to get in on this.
Yeah, that was totally cool. Totally cool. Well,
They
it
should
was
make
some kind of
they
an
should make a
episode.
plane. Somebody email Magic the Gathering. We'll make a planeswalker out of her yet.
Yes.
Okay, so we pretty much gotten through that part. Now we're trying to bury the body, and the ghouls the souls are wandering by or whatever, and then suddenly somebody rushes up being chased by dogs. So Ozzy, did you know that was coming too? Did you know how you were getting back in there? Or?
No, I had no idea how I was getting played in, and based on like the time and everything, I honestly wasn't sure if we were going to be able to play Cass into that session at all. And then,
well, that was like you guys totally threw me a curveball with that too. Like, if I can just say, it probably wasn't that big of a shock to you for me to say that, because I expected you guys to go find a safe place to rest at some point, but then you were like, "No, we're going out into the woods to bury this body," which made sense. It totally did. Like, right? It was just this confluence of like, it's nighttime. In the adventure, every night, those ghosts walk out of that graveyard, and obviously you weren't like, okay, let's go bury this body in that graveyard where the ghost just walked out of, because we don't know what the hell's up with that.
I'll be honest with you. I will be completely honest with you. When you were talking about the ghosts and stuff walking out, I thought you were going to say, and like you see Thorin's ghost.
Yeah. That would have been rough, huh?
God,
There was a part of me that almost, and I didn't do this for reasons, but there was a part of me that almost wanted to have the ghost get up out of the body and start walking. But I was like, we've hurt these people enough tonight.
I wish you would have done
seriously considered therapy if that had happened.
That's not like you. I guess you guys don't necessarily know what those ghosts represent precisely, but it's not just like anybody who dies in Barovia necessarily. So, I would have had to. Yeah, anyway, it's fine.
Well, we're coming up on our time here that I wanted to try to keep us to an hour, a little bit under, because I think we probably have some streamers and some things. But before we call it, obviously, it's going to be a while before we get back, because week after next, we will be in Jellicoe instead of playing Curse of Strahd. So, or some version of that. I don't exactly
We'll be in Jellicoe instead of Barovia.
Yeah.
Almost the same.
So we got to wait a while. So there's lots of time now for Pixl to continue to plot and twist this adventure into his own macabre version of it. But last thoughts from anybody, please. And if there anything from the chat, now's your time to unmute yourself and hop in as soon as what does our cast have to say? I said my thing about bonus mom. That I'm done. What about the rest of you? Anything else?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that something I look forward to going forward, other than just the general joy of playing this game, is that I know me and Pixl had a small conversation on who Ash is going to be going forward, and I'm really excited to kind of start dropping some of that stuff on you guys. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to know very much about Ash as things have progressed till now. Anybody else? Ozzy?
And then trauma is going to be a big play.
Oh God, yeah.
So I'm very excited for the party to start to get to know to start getting to know Cass, just as much as I'm excited for our viewers to get to know her as well.
Okay, very good. Anything from Onyx?
Yeah, I'm sort of thankful that I wasn't going to be the one to die. Honestly,
volunteer as tribute.
And let me clarify, it's because of my tent. So,
that can't be special. I would have stolen that.
I'm glad that we still have that, and we can kind of still play off of Onyx. Onyx's first interactions with the tent and everything. So, I'm super stoked for that. So.
I would think if you'd have died, we'd have to have made like one of those like trap things you put on the back of a horse, put the tent on it, and put dead Onyx in there, and just lugged him around with us.
Yeah, I also am excited that we're going to get to find out more about whatever is up with that tent.
And
For me, do what now?
Go ahead.
I noticed something very funny, which it's something I did really similarly to Waterdeep Dragon Heist, if any of you guys have gotten that far to watch the scene at the end of that with what happens with Bill. But I realized I did a very similar thing of like casting this vignette in this like frozen moment in time. And so I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to figure out other ways to describe character death than by this like everything is like frozen and the camera moves around thing, which is really, really cool. Don't get me wrong, but I was like, oh, like, cause then everyone's gonna know if I start talking about frozen moments, somebody's on the fucking chopping block. You know what I mean? Like, so I was like, all right, we gotta think this through.
Okay.
And then I just really enjoyed. I think my favorite part of my two favorite parts of the whole episode, if I had to pick, were the whole thing where the creepy shadow monster does its deal and the voice mod and all of that was just fun as hell to do. I got to get just unhinged with it, and I enjoy that. And then when the little kid shows up and gives you the moment to get away, and just whoo, boy, I really got into both of those roles a lot, which was very fun.
Okay, anything from chat? Anybody got anything in our last couple of minutes?
I just want to say that I really, really love how into character you guys have gotten. It's really, really fun to watch.
It is really, really fun to do, too. Thank you.
Agree.
Yeah, I think now... And there's something that happens when one character dies, and it draws the group together, but it also breaks the ice. I think we all will not be holding on quite so tightly now, as you do. Like you just don't want your character to die at all because you've got so much stuff you want to reveal about them. But then on the other hand, it's like we're seeing Ozzy deal with that in just a phenomenal way. So we'll have to let him be the model, and we'll have to be as brave and strong as such happens to our characters. So, yeah, Wolfie saying it's basically theater, so drama is good. Drama, and even in the midst of all this stuff, we had some funny moments too, didn't we, guys? We laughed.
Oh, I laughed a lot. That's how I cope. That's how I cope with emotional damage.
And that's because you're a sadist, but that's completely unrelated.
No, hey, don't kink shame me on bonus mom chat.
Right. I apologize.
Well, guys, I really thank you all for coming together on a totally different day and time, fitting this into your schedules to talk. I think we needed it. The five of us needed it. And I hope that the folks who were here enjoyed it. And if you come up with any questions or comments later, just, throw them into Bonus Mom Chat and somebody will holler back at you. And again, it's going to be like 4 weeks or something, or 3 weeks before you see us again. This Friday night is Siege of Castle Rend. Next Friday night is a really good time in Jellicoe. And then we go back to Castle Rend again, and then Curse of Strahd. So
I'll be having a withdrawal by the time we get there. That's for sure.
Yeah. Do you think we won't remember what happened, and we'll have to say, Pixl, tell us what happened?
I imagine on my deathbed, I'll be sitting there having a PTSD moment of like, I'm going to the house.
Just tell your grandchildren about this.
That meme of the dog with the cupcake.
Yeah. Thorin,
Kill Bill siren plays.
It's like when
we got two people typing. If you all have places you need to go and things you need to do. Oh, last time on Days of Our Strahd. Yeah, that's the other thing. This is
yes.
Yeah.
So if you all need to cut away, go ahead. I'm going to wait and see. But I just don't want to keep anybody beyond what else you got to do. But Silver Moon says the whole cast thanks us for making it as much fun as it is to enjoy. Well, thank you. That's what we're aiming for.
I'm glad you guys like it. Like I said, every campaign I'd been a part of up till this point, definitely Monty Python, improv, whatever. So it's very fun for me to get to play something serious and actually get to really, really role play,
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I've
Everybody
never.
Agreed.
This is like the most I've ever role played in D&D ever, and it's been a great learning experience for me because normally I just try to be funny or, something.
Listen, Riftalo, Son of Cliftalo was
God
incredible.
tier comedy.
S tier content.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, S tier, of course.
Something that makes it easier too is when you have a group that it's so easy to play off of, right? Because if you had a party that was all, we're just going to joke around, and which is totally cool, right? I am not hating on the comedic campaigns at all, but like role playing and stuff like that becomes so much easier when you have a party that's like they eat it up just as much as you do. So it makes it real easy to kind of have these moments and have fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'm excited on a very personal note. I'm just going to say that I get to next weekend meet Ozzy and Omega in person. I've never met them in person. So I am really, really excited about that.
I know, I'm excited too.
Little
Yeah.
Skittles is having some regrets. She said now she regrets not jumping in to join when VP first brought it up looking for players.
It's an intimidating game, though. Like,
Oh, I mean, it
you
definitely
shouldn't
is.
feel bad. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, I hate that you regret it, but it's an intimidating game, especially when you watch people who have played before and kind of have an idea already what's going on. But like, I think that a good rule of thumb is just get in there and try it if you really want to. Anybody that plays D&D is not going to make fun of you for not knowing what the rules or being a little awkward interacting, because it's awkward kind of detaching yourself from your person and talking as another person. It's kind of weird at first, right? But you shouldn't feel like embarrassed to get in to do it. I think everybody be like, yo, let's do it.
And that is really a primary focus of the Ages of Ainor Discord. Is that's the kind of play we want. I mean, it can definitely be a dragon crawl. It can definitely be a monster bash. It can be all of that. But there will not be any belittling of each other in the process of that. It will not be tolerated. BonusMom just ain't having it.
Yeah, and the idea too, like of your first campaign and you're going to be on stream. We do have somebody in the Siege of Castle Rend, Jacob's wife. It's her first like long campaign. She's played one shots here and there, but that's intimidating. Like being, not only am I learning this game and it's the first time that I'm doing a whole bunch of this stuff and learning role play and that kind of stuff, but then also we're going to have an audience. Like, whew, like so I don't blame you for saying like, oh, that's intimidating. It's not, you know.
Yeah.
But and kudos to her for doing that, because that to me is like, wow, I can't even imagine saying yes to that proposition. But
and it's like I've only played D&D for I think 3 years, so it's like it's still like there's so many things that I don't know that all of you know more than than like I don't really have much knowledge for certain things, but I've gotten to the point where I can play most any class at this point. As a jack of all trades, master of none type of deal.
That's probably true of most of us.
Well, that's why you have to get you a Final Fantasy 14 wife that is basically a walking D&D encyclopedia, which is basically what I'm saying.
Oh my God.
Better start
Well,
looking.
or you give birth to one. That's what I did. Two.
There you go.
I wish I could get into Final Fantasy 14, man.
Oh man.
I just I know that, if I did that, it would take away what little free time I have.
They do be like that.
That's fair.
We're getting kind
Okay, friends.
words
Well,
from Will too, and thank you. And before anybody else starts to type, let's say goodnight, and we'll do something else next Wednesday. Maybe we'll get all these folks again. Y'all take care. Thank you so much for joining me. Okay, appreciate it, every one of you. Bye now.